们的恐惧是我们的武器，我们的胜利。谢谢了，兄弟姐妹们，你们健身了吗？行动，行动，行动！中国，你完了！
Everything's just beginning for the games you want to play. Bring it on and now fight to the end. Just watch and see. It's all started, everything's begun, and you are over. Cause we're taking down the CCP. Spread the word all through Hong Kong. We will fight till the rock God. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP. They have all life for too long. We will end what they do wrong. Spread the word on the road. Come, let's take down the CCP. On the flag and little longer, and you will surround Let the bullets fly a little longer. We will have freedom to live. We will when you surrender. Let the bullets fly a little longer. Let the bullets fly a little longer. Let the bullets fly a little longer.
干灭中国共产党这个 CCP， 才能让我们远离恐惧。Take them down, CCP.
They try to scare the nation with fabrication. But we see through the lies, people fall, people fight you back. Police corruption with crooked assumptions.
All right, folks, let's get into it. No more. You got a nice taste. Go over and check out Miles Guo's Fight for Hong Kong. It's been out for a while now. Let's continue to pump it on the charts on Spotify, iTunes, and those other platforms, because that's the task, folks.
Link will be in the description of this stream.
Exactly. Absolutely. Check it out if you enjoyed it. And that's the goal, folks. Today we're talking about taking down CCP, getting to the root of the problem, to a lot of the deep state control, why Biden is a national security risk. The man is compromised. China is so deep in his pockets, not only with money bribes, but with blackmail and other operations as well. They had the laptop from hell long before the Americans, probably. And they've been using it as leverage over these politicians. And we're going to get into it. Finally, today, we're going to play for you. Don't hear it from our voice. You're going to hear it from the devil themselves, the mainstream media. Even CNN now is dabbling in some of this information that a couple months ago, leading up before the election, was not talked about, was fake news, conspiracy theory. Hunter Biden did nothing wrong. His business dealings are fine. You'll find nothing wrong with his tax filings. I'm sure he knows a lot about energy. That's why he's on the board of Burisma, teaching all these people about energy, getting paid all this money. I'm sure, well, in between smoking all that crack on those photos that we see on his laptops, he manages to run a successful multi-million-dollar hedge funds and all these other things these guys are involved in. We're going to get into it today. And like I said, you're going to hear it from the mainstream news. Finally now are having to cover it. Why? Because I think it's all coming out. It already was coming out before the election, but now it's really going to come out because finally even the neocons, Republicans, and some of the rhinos are realizing, holy crap, we like our corruption. We like our crony capitalism, but do we really want to sign off to the CCP? Do we really want to put China in control of America when they literally are on stage in their own country laughing about how they control us? I don't think so, folks. So we're going to get into it today.
All right. Yeah. In case you need any evidence, well, here you go.
Very people who ranted so hysterically about Russia were, even as they were doing it, even as they were yelling about Vladimir Putin, in fact, they were doing precisely what they claimed to decry. They were working on behalf of a foreign power, our chief global rival, the government of China. The Russia hoax effectively was a diversion. It hid something that is not a hoax at all, but that is real and threatening to all of us. We're going to spend the foreseeable future reporting on the relationship between America's political and financial elites and the communist government of China that has made many of them very rich. But we want to start tonight with evidence, with a remarkable video. This video was recorded a little over a week ago on November 28th. The man you're about to see speak is a professor from Beijing called Dong Cheng. The video comes from an appearance that he made on a Chinese television show about Wall Street and international trade. Dong Cheng worked at Renmin University in Beijing. He is also, like so many in academia in China, a servant of his country's government. This video was deleted from Chinese social media soon after being uploaded, and there's a reason for that, as you'll see.
前边特朗普政府跟我们打贸易战，那么我们为什么搞不定特朗普政府？啊，为什么以前1992年到2016年之间，中美之间各种问题都能搞得定？是不是？大家发现没有？所有的危机，不管是银河号事件，还是炸大使馆，还是撞了飞机，所有事情全部是床头吵架床尾和，2个月之内搞定。什么原因？啊，这儿我抛出一个可能又要是暴论啊。就是因为咱们上面有人，就是我们在美国的权势核心圈啊，我们有我们的老朋友。
There's a lot of garbage floating around the internet right now, a lot of fake things. That video is real, and those subtitles are accurate. We checked today with 2 different Chinese speakers and confirmed that. What he just said, what you just read on the screen, tells the story. This is as close to a smoking gun as we have ever seen. Quote, we have people at the top of America's core inner circle of power and influence. According to the man you just saw, that has been true for decades. So who are these people and how many of them work in our media and in our government? Well, he didn't say precisely. At one point in the video, he described a Chinese agent working as a vice president at a, quote, a top Wall Street financial institution. I can't say more, he explained, without making political trouble. Dong Cheng did tell his audience that one agent in particular was especially useful. He goes on at some length about her. He describes her as an American who's lived abroad for many years, who is now a Chinese citizen. And this seems to baffle him a little bit. The Chinese government doesn't allow dual citizenship. Why would they? Why would anyone? Dong Cheng seems pleased that the US government is foolish enough to allow it. He explains that this American agent, who lives at least part of the year in Beijing, helped the Chinese government with a propaganda operation in the city of Washington in 2015. And he goes on to describe that in some detail. The Obama administration was easy to manipulate, he suggests. They helped. The Chinese had many friends among the Obama people. The problem came when Donald Trump was elected. After that, he says, everything changed.
是呢，就过去这个30年啊，过去40年，我们在美国的他的这个利用他权势核心圈，是不是？我前面讲过，华尔街在1970年代开始对美国它的内政外交有非常强的影响力啊，所以我们有路径依赖，是吧？但问题是08年之后，华尔街的地位下降，更重要的是16年之后，华尔街搞不定特朗普。 为什么很尴尬？特朗普以前对华尔街有过。
Actually, let me just say real quick here before we continue on, and we'll definitely continue on and finish this video. But after I seen this earlier, I was getting a little bit up to speed in regards to this stuff because, you know, that's the thing. There's a lot of stuff we all got to research. And that's the beautiful thing about having, you know, Matt and myself doing kind of our own thing here is we can kind of bring new information to each other and help expand and educate ourselves in regards to not just philosophy, politics, but, you know, obviously geostrategic positioning of governance and all kinds of the corporate world, what they're doing. So this is all good information. But you know what? As soon as I heard about this stuff, something clicked in the back of my mind because I remember reading an article. Was it today or yesterday? Basically pertaining to something along the same lines of this stuff. Anyways, I'm going to finish this article, but I'm just going to give you a little quick headline from this article. This one's out of Business Insider, and we're going to deal with this subsequent to this video with a headline. Wall Street has always been progressives' big bad, but a new generation in the finance industry is starting to sound more like allies than enemies. So this is talking about progressives. Now, as far as I'm concerned, The term progressive, just like socialist, right? Sounds good in theory when you read what's it supposed to mean, right? Progress. I'm like, well, who's against progress, right? But once again, that's the problem with these authoritarian collectivists. They use all kinds of different terms that aren't exactly what they genuinely mean, and that's done that way for a reason. That's marketing, folks. They're not going to tell you they want to take over your social and economic lives and make you a habitual slave to the ruling class. No, they come up with all kinds of different terms for that to explain what they're trying to do. But basically, we're talking about central planners and Wall Street. And I mean, come on, the financial crisis after 2008, when they all had their hands out to big government, these are corporate execs. These are people that are supposed to be market participants and advocates of the free market. And they all lined up in the trough like a bunch of fucking pigs with their hand out to big government. So these progressives, and there's definitely, as we see, lots of them, these activists on Wall Street, because apparently competition and the market is too hard. It's too difficult. It's much easier to make your wealth these days by way of force, violence, coercion, or wars, right? So anyways, like I say, I'll get back to this shortly after this video, but let's get back to the video.
会是软性违约，所以双方有矛盾啊。当然，这个细节我就不多说了，时间可能已经来不及了，是吧？那么，这个中美贸易战过程中，他们也试图帮忙啊。据我所知，美方的朋友跟我讲，这个试图帮忙，但是啊，力有不逮。
Since the 1970s, he said, and he's an economics professor, you should know, Wall Street has had enormous influence over the way the United States government operates over American policy. The Chinese government, he says, has enormous influence on Wall Street. And that arrangement worked very well for a long time.
Just quickly, what would you initially consider if someone told you that big corporations, big business, and governments are working hand in hand? Kind of sounds a lot like fascism.
Then Donald Trump unexpectedly was elected in 2016, and Wall Street was infuriated. Wall Street can't fix Trump, he said, but they tried. And this solves the mystery. If you're wondering why our political class has stood by and allowed the Chinese government to degrade this country and our way of life, why they stood by as the Chinese government has flooded the United States with deadly opioids that have killed hundreds of thousands of people, or have stood by as the Chinese government ripped off billions in intellectual property from our companies, there's your answer. Earlier this year, the chairman of Harvard's chemistry department was arrested for taking $50,000 a month from the Communist Party of China in return for sending secrets and referring top scientists to Beijing. It's barely rated as a scandal. You may not even be aware it happened. Why? Because so many are on the take, in effect. Donald Trump was an impediment to this very lucrative arrangement. And for that reason, Di Zhongsheng explains in the video, America's most powerful elites, and he calls them that, got to work on electing a new president. Again, read the words at the bottom of your screen as he speaks.
但现在呢？现在我们看到拜登上台了，传统的精英。 政治精英啊，这个建制派，他们跟华尔街的关系是非常密切的。所以大家看到吧，拜登的儿子被特朗普说你在全球有什么基金公司，发现没有？谁帮他建的基金公司啊？明白吗？这个都有买卖啊。那么，所以这个时候啊，这个时候我们
Donald Trump, he notes, because the Chinese do pay close attention to what we say here. Donald Trump has complained about Hunter Biden and his ties to the Chinese government. Those are real, he just confirms. So now you know why you weren't allowed to talk about Hunter Biden's laptop, why big business aligned as one, the tech companies and the rest, to suppress that story because they were implicated in it. Back in October, we interviewed a man called Tony Bobulinski. We interviewed him because no one else would. Tony Bobulinski was a business partner of the Bidens. Here's what he told us about China.
And in a document that you guys have, and I think it's been provided to the world, the Chinese reference that because of their trust in the Biden family, that Chairman Yi and Director Zhang are excited about moving forward in this. And in that document, they reference loaning $5 million to the BD family.
Right.
The BD family is the Biden family.
What are the implications of this going forward? If Joe Biden is elected president, which could very well happen, how does this constrain his ability to deal with China?
Are you asking for my personal opinion?
I'm asking for your opinion as someone who's worked with the Chinese.
So I think Joe Biden and the Biden family are compromised.
I think Joe Biden and the Biden family are compromised with China. Looks like he was right about that, and it looks like the Bidens are far from the only one who've been compromised. Gordon Chang has been covering this story for an awfully long time. He's a senior fellow at the Gatestone Institute. He's the author of The Great U.S.-China Tech War.
Oh, there we go, folks.
All right, so like, can you imagine? Like, let me try to explain to people like this. You know, like you said, since the 70s, and I think literally in a video podcast that I just did, if you guys go look back, I don't know if it was the last one I did or the one before this, I said, you know, I think it really took root about the time I was born, about 89, 90, which is basically what Tucker has said tonight now. But if you liken it to, if you were just plant a flower today, it wouldn't have much of a root system. You'd be able to go and just be able to pull it right out of the ground, right? Whereas if you left that thing to grow into a tree and develop a nice thick root system for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, you go try and pull that out, it's not going to happen. It's got a deep rooted system there, right? It's built its strength into the ground. So this is why in my documentary series, I used the picture of the White House and the deep state and then the root system going underneath it, because this is how deep rooted the corruption is, guys. Okay. They started off the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. They started off in the earlier days in the 70s, like I said, trying their methods to pay off politicians and gain influence. And most of the people they approached at the time told them to kick sand. This is America. We're capitalists. We don't like communism. It was the era, right? They just fought wars against communism and stuff, right? So it's fresh in the minds of the people. So instead, they use other tactics like Wall Street during those times to influence American politics that way. But it wasn't until the 90s when George Bush Sr. came along and it started the spiral of the other Bush, Clinton, Obama, and potentially the Bidens now, that they actually moved their corruption levels up to a next level of control in America. Now they didn't just control America through Wall Street, but they had physical control over politicians and actors in high positions of power. How did they achieve this? Well, they try it. We know this now. We know this through the programs that's been leaked over there. And they use multiple tactics. So first they say, can you be bought? If you can't be bought, is there anything that you do bad in your life that we can use against you as leverage? Maybe blackmail. And if that doesn't work, then they even try to set you up in scenarios of blackmail to try to entrap these politicians and have leverage over them, make them do what they want. So we know now going forward, you just heard on Tucker, you've heard it from Bob Alinsky, the guy who's been on the deals, saying you have Joe Biden, who is not only financially compromised by the Chinese, he's compromised by other countries as well, but the Chinese is the biggest portfolio of investors. But they also have compromised material on his son with his sexual perversions. This is what I've been saying, and me and my father have been talking about for months back when the Hunter Biden laptop stuff first leaked, and I couldn't cover a lot of the stuff on YouTube because the images and the videos were disgusting. I viewed them with my own eyes, many of them pornographic, and I could never show that content on YouTube. So I shared it on Parlors and other things like that, and GTV and G Media, if you wanted to go find that stuff. It's all out there, folks. We knew this was all coming down the pipe. You had the Chinese guy.
I got your channel just so that people know, or you can probably see it now. I got your channel brought right up here now. So if you folks want to go get some of that great information, check out this documentary, as you can see right here, What They Don't Want You to See, Deep State, Communist Takeover 2020. Check this out. Like I say, Matt did a lot of work, put a lot of effort into creating this. It's not too long either, folks. It's just over an hour and 1 minute. So if you want, get the information. This is something that perks your ears up and you want to get more information, I definitely highly recommend you. First of all, go to Matthew Hunter 1776. As you can see, exactly.
Well, let's do a little experiment off the cuff here. Scroll down the bottom of my channel. Let's go to the very beginning of it. When did I really start doing this? And what information was I covering at the time?
1 month ago.
So a month ago, this is my backup channel. What's the name of the couple of videos there?
Sebastian Gorka, Steve Bannon tells President Trump his next moves, and then Steve Bannon critiques Trump so far. shows.
I see some Sidney Powell stuff. I think she's talking about election frauds and laptops.
Sidney Powell starts about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Top lawyer Sidney Powell. We have the documents. So yeah, there's lots and lots of Sidney Powell related. There's lots of Giuliani, Steve Bannon, all kinds of information up here, folks.
And that's just the backup channel I started a month ago. I got another one, my main one I started a couple months back before that, and I cover all the Hunter Biden stuff. And like I tell you, folks, if you go to my YouTube page or you just clicked into the people talking about this stuff, you can literally see we say, here's what's going to happen. Wait a couple days, bam, it comes out and it happens. So that's why I've been confident through this whole process and thinking Trump's still going to win. Trump's still got this. Things are going to change. And that's just how it's going to play out. You know, the Army generals, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, all these individuals at the top, they also have access to Hunter Biden's laptop. They also have access to information showing this guy is compromising control. So here's what we're having happening. We're having a divide in all these institutions across the board, those who are bought and paid for and support it, and who are implicated, versus those who are not. So that's why when people say, well, why did that judge throw out that case of Trump's election stuff? Well, you know, it's not hard to think. Maybe there's judges and stuff that are thinking on different political spectrums. Maybe there's judges that are pro-Trump and judges that are not. And, you know, it's a multifaceted level. But when you get to the very top and you understand that the military's role is to protect America, right? It's to protect America from foreign and domestic threats, right? If China rolled up on the seas right now in ships, that would be a physical threat. It would be the army who would come in and deal with that threat, right? Not the local law enforcement, not not me and you. It would usually be the army's position and job to handle that threat and that fight rolling up on the shores. Well, we're living in the modern era, folks. And China just doesn't roll up on the shores with ships because they'll never win that war. We have more military might. So what do? They use these dirty-handed tactics by buying and bribing politicians and controlling them through that way, which we're finding out with the Hunter Biden and other families. So you can treat it now the same way you can treat it as if army ships rolled up on shores. It is a national security threat. The implications we're dealing with right now with Hunter Biden, his family, and all these other corrupt individuals, and these other politicians in Washington who have been bought and paid off by the Chinese. This is a national security threat. This is something that very well you could see the military take over and control it as such. And why you see, I think, a lot of generals leading the way and a lot of military men are the ones who are the guys on the ground, whether it's Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania, whether it's Michael General Flynn, whether it's the other general who West on scorecard.
I just want to jump in there real quick, Matt, because you just made me think of something. Actually, I was just getting ready to share another that, like I say, that business, and we're definitely going to get to that business insider article, like I say, that was pertaining to the kind of information that we were already talking about. But Matt just reminded me of another 2 articles that I just read this morning. And once again, what I really love, folks, what I love more than anything is using establishment media as my source. Not because I like them. I know they lie and misrepresent, but if they're covering a story that so-called conspiracy theorists or other people cover, well, that just goes to show that obviously if the media's covered it, the establishment media's covered it, well, then it can't be that conspiratorial, can they? Right? So let's get to this, and because not just establishment, but some of the great alternative sources that are finally coming to fruition in Canada. And this one, the first one, we're going to be dealing with the Globe and Mail article subsequent to this. Well, let's get to the post-millennial article just to get you a little bit up to speed and what we're talking about here. So Matt was just talking about the fact of Chinese being on the American soil. Well, that's not something we have to imagine. We actually know that to be a real, genuine scenario in Canada today. So this one, like I say, is coming out of post-millennial. Headline out of this particular article: breaking, Trudeau invited Chinese military to train in Canada. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau invited troops from China's People's Liberation Army to train in Canada, according to a new bombshell report. And, that would go over really well with America, right? Because, having Chinese troops, right? One of the biggest threat to America on the soil of their northern neighbor, that's going to go over real well, right? This was reported by Roberto Wacarel Cruz, Montreal, December 9th, 2020. as the big tech tyrants tighten up their grip. Anyway, they're telling you to join Parler, and if you want to do that, go right ahead. Because
I don't know if you noticed or if you've seen Ezra Levant did a 30-minute piece on this as well, where he got the Freedom of Information request and shows you the documents and reads through them.
Well, it's referencing that right here.
Yeah, and he reads through. It looks like they tried to redact it, but somehow maybe it slipped through and it didn't get redacted because it says classified material, some of it. But it goes on to say that.
Let me just finish reading this, and it'll cover exactly what you're talking about. So just one second. So Prime Minister Justin Trudeau invited troops from China's People's Liberation Army to train in Canada, according to a new bombshell report from Rebel News. So there's the Rebel News, and as you can see, anything that's highlighted or underscored means you can click on it, and you'll get an instant hyperlink to go straight to that source, straight to that article, or straight to that news report. So I definitely highly recommend that you check this out. All this information is going to be in the description of this stream below. The People's Liberation Army, known for such atrocities as the Tiananmen Square massacre, were invited for cold weather training at CFB Petawawa, Ontario. The revelations come from a 34-page access to information document dubbed the China Files and released to Rebel News. So anyways, folks, like I said, I'm not going to take up too much time with this stuff other than to let you know that, like I say, it will be in the description of the link or of this stream below, but just to let you know, yes, even one of Canada's established media sources, probably one of the very organizations that are on the dole of big government these days, but it's still kind of their job to report stuff, right? That's literally, it's kind of in their occupational description, right? So yeah, I'll even show you where actually even the establishment media is having to acknowledge and point out some of these realities. So Global Affairs objected to Canadian military decision to cancel training with China's People's Liberation Army. So in this one, they're saying, this is from Robert Fife, the Ottawa Bureau Chief, and Stephen Chase. And as you can see, December 9th, 2020 is when this particular article was referenced. The Department of Global Affairs pushed back against a decision last year by Canada's top soldier to cut back, right? So it doesn't mean that it didn't happen at all, to cut back on interactions with China's People's Liberation Army, warning Beijing might consider this a reprisal for the arbitrary arrest of 2 Canadians, right? So government documents seen by the Globe Mail and marked secret and for Canadian eyes only show that officials at the highest levels of global affairs were alarmed that General Jonathan Vance, chief of the defense staff, had canceled winter military exercises with the PLA in 2019. So anyways, like I said, folks, both of these articles will definitely be linked in the description of the stream. But once again, it's showing you an alternative media source, and thank you very much to the Post Millennium for being one of those alternative sources in Canada. Much greatly appreciated to have you folks on board in the Liberty movement, and at least trying your best to counter the establishment of the status quo. But once again, even if you say, oh, these guys are just a bunch of conspiracy theorists, well, okay, well, you might want to reference the Globe and Mail article, and I guess you'll have to go to them and say they're conspiracy theorists as well, because they're basically reiterating the same talking point, just from a different angle. So that's the thing about politics, right? All kinds of angles, right? Look at Global News, the way, or Global Mail, the way they're covering the story from a totally different angle, but they're at least acknowledging that the story and the information is real. So that's what you need to keep in mind. And when I share and use CBC as a source for a lot of my articles, it's not because I trust CBC News, but it's just to show the people that, hey, if they're covering it, don't fucking try to tell me that I'm just pulling information out of my ass, right? So that's basically why I do what I do. And this, like, once again, helps further solidify and expand on just how trustworthy we should be in terms of sources of news and information. Because one thing I don't want to do, and it's very important to me to maintain my reputation, is misinform or misrepresent what the hell is going on out there. But like I say, that's why I like to use sources of information that's not just from my mouth, but from other sources as well, so that you can realize that I'm not just giving you information. Matt's not just giving you information, but we're doing it in a manner to hopefully try to help educate and inform you. And it's vitally important that you at least get to that point at some point in time, because an ignorant person these days, you're in a bad, precarious situation. Anyways, back to whatever you wanted to get to there, Matt. Like I said, just
to add slight more context to it, so people think when they read the article that the Chinese army was coming to Canada to train with them. It was about 6 to 8 military individuals. It wasn't a massive amount of people. And the context of the trip was to teach them the military engagements and tactics of cold warfare in this type of climate, right? Because, you know, China China maybe has some colder areas in their locations, but not like the same kind of environment maybe per se of Canada or someplace in the United States. So it would have been of value for them, the information for the information warfare, to come over here and say, how do you guys do it? How do you guys fight? What guns are you using? How do you hide yourself in the snow? This and that. So, I mean, yeah, you don't want to be inviting your enemy over here to learn this stuff. The fact that they have that going on, it should be a huge red flag to Canadians. And the Americans, that's why it was classified Canadian eyes only. They didn't disclose this to the Americans because, yeah, the Americans would be like, what the hell are you letting our biggest enemy right now, who's literally rigging in the election and stuff, mess with us on going into your nation up north, teaching them how we do our warfare here in these colder climates. What a traitorous act. And it goes deeper than that. Like Rebel Blue, another aspect of it is Canadians and also some even American high-end officials go over to China and do the same thing and watch their military parades and stuff like that. It's just, it gives us all a dirty feeling up our spine. Like, why are we being friends with these people who have Uyghurs and slave camps and who clearly have total differences in the way that we run our countries and ideologies, principles, and philosophies? Like, it's time to start calling out China for what they are. They're authoritarian dictators, and they need to stop ruling their government the way that they do. It's one thing to enslave their own people.
Of course,
it's
we
hard
got a
enough
few of
as
them here too, though, right?
what?
Of course, we got a few of those here too.
Oh, 100%. But I mean, at least over there, it's obviously blatant, obviously, and they don't hide it. I mean, they kind of justify it under the guise of democracy over here. But I mean, what I'm getting at is the point is, yeah, they rule over there with an iron fist. It's a joke. It's ridiculous. We should call them out for that. And the fact that we have someone like Trudeau who likes to prance around in Parliament how he's a feminist, he's so about everyone's rights, and he just wants peace and love, but yet he cozies up to one of the most dictatorous, murderous nations on the planet. Yeah, these people have Uyghurs in concentration camps. They organ harvest people. Very nasty, nasty things that the CCP does. And we shouldn't be friends with them. We shouldn't be definitely inviting them over to our soil and sharing military intelligence. Wow. And that's just one story that we covered, and a lot more that we're going to get to now.
Well, let me, like I say, and in the interim, though, like I say, this is something I thought was quite pertinent and important, and I'm going to cover it now. So, like I say, this is it's out of Business Insider, and yeah, there's a couple decent contributors to Business Insider, but they've definitely been captured over the years. I've been paying attention to Business Insider for years, but less so in recent times because, like I say, it seems like everyone these days have been captured by big government and corporatism. But anyways, let's just get to this submitted opinion piece to the Business Insider entitled, Wall Street has always been progressives, big bad, but a new generation in the finance industry is starting to sound more like allies than enemies. So this was Alex Yablon, opinion contributor, December 6, 2020. Where do we get to? Oh, here we go. For as long as the current day American left has been around, so they don't even know how to write very well. So let's just start it with that. It has been a very clear big bad Wall Street. It has had a very clear big bad Wall Street. From the initial eruption of Occupy Wall Street at Zuccotti Park in 2011. Okay, you know what? I don't even know if I'm going to be able to use this as a decent source because
if you can't read it, it's probably not a decent source.
No, but 2011.
Yeah.
Like 2011?
Bring up, I sent you CNN, our Lord and
Occupy
Savior and
Wall
trusted
Street was
news.
after 2000. Well, yeah, actually, no, it might have been 2011. Actually, it could very well be. It's just been a while, but I would have thought that the movement after the financial crisis happened before a few years. Anyways, what'd you say, Matt?
I said, bring up our Lord and Savior and trusted news, CNN. I sent you an article today, CNN, federal crime investigator into Hunter Biden. Let's look at that article.
No, but this is the part that I think was really, really important to specify. Actually, you know what? No. Actually, I can save this for, I'll do this. I'll actually cover this article in a standalone video on my own. Because, yeah, I probably want to get more up to speed and understand. But I definitely kind of know where the author seemed to be going with this particular article. And it's something that I think is really important to cover. But, yeah, we'll deal with it in a subsequent video. So what were you saying you want me to bring up?
Bring up our trusted Savior and news, CNN.
Oh, the CNN one. Okay, so that was the last
facts
one. You
over
said?
fiction. You
Was
know,
that the
Brian
last one you said?
Stelter, his reality. It's CNN, and the title is Federal Criminal Investigation into Hunter Biden. It
There
might
we
be
go.
a few up.
There we go. Okay, I got it.
Because I don't want to spread fake news, guys. So we got to put up our trusted name and news here at CNN, unbiased.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Right.
if they say it's news, and if they say there's an investigation of Hunter Biden, now we can believe it.
Apparently, it must be right.
It's got to be right. We for months and months we were wrong, but now it's right.
So here it is. Okay, so let me.
So what's this, guys? And why is it now CNN's covering it after the election? Interesting.
No, but really though, the fact that it's literally after the election. I mean, I don't know how you want to think about this, folks, or perceive that. But I mean, to me, it's at least got a really, really fishy smell. Prior to it, like prior to the election, it was Trump's fucking conspiracy theories. Trump, he's a fucking nut bar. Trump's an idiot. Trump. But now, as soon as that, the election's over and their man, right, supposedly going to take the reins of power here in January, now all of a sudden, it's like, now they're going to admit to this stuff. Really? Well, don't you think it would have been wise and prudent to do that during the election? Yeah. Well, no, not if your goal and your intention was to make sure that Trump didn't win. This actually makes complete sense if that was your goal intention, right? And that's, once again, just use common sense and reason, folks. So this, like you can see, federal criminal investigation into Hunter Biden focused on his business dealings in China. And this was reported by Evan Perez and Pamela Brown, CNN, December 10th, 2020. And I don't know, do you want me to read a little bit of it, man?
No, we don't need to read. I'll read from CNN. I'll tell you basically what I'll give you the perspective that they won't.
Video at the very least, though.
Yeah. So what I should say. So CNN's heading is federal criminal investigation of Hunter Biden focused on his tax dealings, his financial dealings in China. But what also they don't really talk about is what Fox News covered is that will also entail them looking at his laptop and other materials to look into these financial dealings, right? So if you got the tax man, what do we always know? The best way to get someone is by their taxes. If you go look back at some of the corrupt officials or mafiosos, the few guys who have actually got caught throughout history, usually they got them on stupid little things like tax evasion, because it's one thing that's so wide they can get you for sure on anything. But, what's the tax man going to do when he's flicking through Hunter Biden's laptop and he's like, okay, here's him dealing with China, signing $5 million. Oh, here's him smoking crack. Oh, here's him banging some prostitutes. Here's him with some underage girl. Like, this is going to open a can of worms. So I think what's going to happen, there's two things that way they can spin this. One, you got to worry that the deep state is the ones who's in control of the federal investigation. And then they say that they found nothing, and then that way it blows up in everyone's face. Say, "Oh, see, he was looked at, and they didn't find anything," which I find very hard to believe, because at the same time they're going to do that, all of us patriots, the Rudy Giuliani's, and the people who have access to the Hunter Biden hard drive, we're going to be blasting once again all the pictures, all the nasty materials, all the audio of these corrupt dealings. So it's going to look very bad on the FBI and the Federal Investigation Unit, who is investigating this stuff, to be saying, "Oh, we see nothing wrong," when you got Bob Alinsky, who was sitting there on the deal saying, "Well, I was there and signed the paperwork with them, and I think it's fucked." So I don't know how they're going to spin it, folks, but this is why they have to start covering it, because they got to start working on a spin. And that's what's going to happen. They're going to, I don't know, but I'm trying to right now, even trying to figure out how they're going to spin it, because like, how's CNN going to say this now? Oh, he did nothing wrong. That in between his smoking crack habit, he did run Burisma very successful, and he's a very intelligent, knowledgeable man. So, I mean, it's all going to come out, and that's just the Hunter Biden stuff. I think what we're all finding out now, whether it's Dianne Feinstein with her driver, and now we're learning Rep Swalwell, Fartgate guy, the guy who farts live on TV, talking about Russiagate. And here he's talking about Russia interfluence, Russia. He's so excited he passes gas about it. And while he's doing that,
swallow.
He's actually sleeping with a Chinese spy. Like, this is insanity. What kind of crap is this, right? Now, whether he believes she was a spy or not just shows you this guy doesn't even know who he keeps in his company. So what a joke that is. And this Chinese spy, we're finding out, she's made her rounds around Washington and knocked on a few doors for some information in exchange for the opening of her legs. So we're going to see, folks, China runs deep in the deep state. It runs deep in Washington, and its control is vast. And we see it. Look, the NBA can't even talk about negative about China. LeBron James got to come out and say, you know, China's such an amazing thing. And all these other crappy things we see happening with sports.
Sorry. I was just going to add this to the video here.
So I think finally now the American public has realized that China has infiltrated the schools. They've paid off professors to teach sweet things about communism versus capitalism. They have seeped their way into Washington and paid off politicians to pass, give them military secrets, to give them access to more military bases in the South China Sea and other horrible things like taking our jobs and businesses. We're now finding out that China has been deep seed rooted into the scientific field. So, I mean, this makes sense, though. America has actually dropped the ball. For someone who's the #1 military power on the world, I sure hope that we have just as much American intelligence and agents in foreign countries like China, the same way that they've infiltrated our country. I mean, this is crazy. The #2 power in the world is very ambitious, and they want to become #1 under the guise of authoritarianism. And all these control freaks will allow it because they're all in on it too, because communism breeds the elite class, the rules for thee and not the rules for thee, for you guys. We will live under poverty like we're seeing. They obliterated the middle class, small businesses. All this lockdown stuff was about consolidating wealth. We're learning that now that while everyone else was poor during the pandemic and lost all their businesses, all the ones who, it's almost as if they sat in a room, right? Nobody wants to say it, but it's weird that a pandemic hits and then all the already wealthiest dudes also gain a bunch more wealth during that pandemic. And also the pandemic benefits China and screws over the American election, which allows mail-in ballots, screws over America by consolidating wealth and shutting down small businesses while they have parties and pool parties in Wuhan, China. Come on. It's this, if it acts and walks and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Nobody wants to say it. People say it's Alex Jones talks like this. It's conspiracy theory, but this is the reality, folks, that I can bring up videos in the 1970s where the CIA had heart attack guns, where they would shoot a dart made of material that would melt, and it would drop a material inside your body and give you a heart attack, and the corner wouldn't show. This was in the 60s and 70s. They had heart attack guns. We now know that the China has been using microwave weapons and stuff like that on diplomats and other individuals.
Let's not forget about Cuba.
And Cuba as well. So people need to realize that we live in a very advanced world. You look at your iPhone and you're like, wow, this iPhone's amazing. But you never have the capacity to think, I wonder what the military has an underground base when they're studying their advanced tech. You never would think that maybe the military is 20, 30, 40, 50 years ahead of the curve before the public gets access to certain technologies. Maybe military has found it first. And, what have we learned? The difference over 10 years in advancement, you go from like an iPhone from 10 years ago to an iPhone today. It's like it's a totally different animal. So we see if the military only has just 10 years above the public in military advancements, wow, what they're capable of. So I'm trying to get through to the public that this stuff is way more deep-rooted and crazier than any movie or script than you can think. And yes, it's this wild because there's trillions of dollars on the line of enriching certain people dependent on who sits in that seat of the White House.
I'm just sharing. I just noticed that Jennifer Russell, the chief health medical officer in New Brunswick, put out something today. So I'm just sharing that real quick because here in NB, this is something that I got to pay attention to here.
All right. After that, when you're done talking, we'll bring up Don Jr., the president's son, talking about spies in America. Wake up.
Okay, just one sec. I got that one already set up. Okay, clickety click. Let's bring this bad boy. Oh, wait. Damn, I keep forgetting.
Guys, we're here to talk today about Chinese spies and what they're doing to our country and why. Today, Axios.
Hold on, let me go back a little bit here.
He's going to talk about Axios, folks. Axios. I mean, go look at the source. We're talking about mainstream stuff here, sources that usually I wouldn't even back and get behind.
Wrong one.
The sheeple love Axios.
Wrong one. Sorry, I had the wrong one there. Okay, this one. No, this one. There we go. There we go. There we go, folks.
Chinese spies, what they're doing to our country and why. Today, Axios broke an amazing story about a Chinese spy that got very, very close to Eric Swalwell. I'm reading that allegedly they were sleeping together. A Chinese spy sleeping with a U.S. congressman. This is Eric Swalwell, the guy who farted on live TV. That's probably the best way you can remember him. But you can also probably remember him as one of the leaders of the tinfoil hat brigade that was screaming, Russia, Russia, Russia for the last 4 years. Think about it. The guy leading the tinfoil hat brigade, screaming about Russia collusion and Russia interference, calling me personally and my father agents of Russia, that we're Russian spies. He's in a relationship with and sleeping with a Chinese spy. You can't make this stuff up. This moron is sleeping with a Chinese spy, but it shouldn't surprise us. Have you guys noticed, whether it was Dianne Feinstein, whether it's the Chinese government giving all this money to Hunter Biden and all the deals, and Hunter Biden being the lawyer of China's spy chief, you think that was maybe because they're collecting compromising information? Do you think that maybe there's a reason that the Chinese keep targeting the Democrats? I mean, think about it. Every time you see one of these Chinese spy stories, it's with a Democrat or with like a liberal institution like a university or one of these things. You ever notice they always seem to go after the Democrats? Have you ever noticed that the Chinese propaganda, the stuff that you see from, their propagandists, the newspapers that they own, their government officials who are pretty loose on Twitter in terms of attacking people? You ever notice that the Chinese always seem to attack Republicans? They're always going after Republicans. Their propaganda machine is always going after Republicans. And yet when they choose to get close to someone, it's always with the Democrats. Does that tell you everything you need to know about what's going on? I mean, think about it. Does that tell you everything you need to know about the Democrats and what other thinking people think they are doing to our country? The fact that the Chinese want to attach themselves to the Democrats means it's not good. Meaning the Democrats are not good for America, and the Chinese know it, so they'll do whatever they can to help them. They know they'll probably, they assume that they'll turn on their government. They'll give them the secrets because, the Democrats don't seem to want to represent America anymore. That's become pretty apparent. But you notice it only goes one way. The Chinese attacks go to Republicans. The Chinese spies always go to the Democrats. Think about this, guys. So when Eric Swalwell, who spent 4 years accusing me of being an agent of Russia, is actually in bed with, quite literally, a Chinese spy, you got to wake up. This guy is compromised. He's on an intelligence committee. He deals with the CIA.
Maybe that's why he was targeted.
He's in bed with a Chinese spy? How can he keep his job? How can he stay on these committees? And where the hell is anyone in the media asking the same question? Where are these people burying their head in the
guy? Where's the CIA who should have caught it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's their job to come into Eric Swalwell and say, yo, listen, the girl you're sleeping with, she's on our radar as a Chinese spy. You probably shouldn't be talking to her about any kind of intelligence briefing material. But no, guys, they're all in on it. That's what the guy was laughing about with the people on stage in China. They've had this control since the 90s. It's all a joke. They know it. But then Trump got in there, like he said, and he screwed it up for them. And this is why it's important Trump wins. And this is why Trump has to win. You think all these military generals right now, underneath Trump's leadership, are just going to now, when Biden rolls in and tells them, hey, take the knee to Xi Jinping, and this is the new military, we're going to be the military arm for China? You think these guys who are over there in Afghanistan putting their lives down are now just going to go and work under Chinese control? I don't think so. So why do I talk with such confidence? Honestly, if I'm wrong, then sad day. But I believe that we have enough patriots, we have enough men in this country who care about liberty that will not go under communist rule. And I truly believe America, there's enough of them who openly would not accept Biden, who's clearly compromised, to go in there and then obviously then have access to our military, to classified information. I mean, what a disaster that would be for national security wise. What kind of information the Chinese could then gain from Biden, who would literally be the president of the most powerful nation on the globe.
Well, you know what? And you know what? Because I do recognize that some of the audience obviously here, it's split. Obviously, some of the audience going to be, maybe fans of myself, the Canadian Libertarian page. Maybe some are fans of Matt, and we definitely recognize seeing them both. But what I definitely want to say, especially for those of you who are fans of Matt or anyone that pays attention to Alex Jones, man, if there's one thing I got to admit is whenever he come up with that name, conjured up that name for his channel, for his main platform, like InfoWars. This is what, and I've actually been listening to some articles. Maybe I'll reference it maybe in another future upcoming video or stream and really delve into it. But I heard another person, really wise person, basically talking about how, historically we're also used to that when you talk about wars, it's always meant in the physical realm, right? And why is that the case? I mean, it's simple. Fuck what any other idiot or expert, right? No matter how many years of education they got in their background, put all that shit to the side. Just think, why have all historical wars been physical conflicts? Because that's all really we had. That's all we had. Prior to the information age, all you had was your physical. If you wanted to talk to someone, you had to go walk down the street, drive down the road, right? Well, I mean, we did have phone and radio and stuff, but much, much less conducive with mass spreading of information as it pertains to what we're talking about like today in the information age, where everything can be done in real time at the speed of light, 186,000 miles a second, and where billions of people are connected automatically and instantaneously, right? So prior to all of history, all wars, all battles were physical in fucking nature. That's just the way it was. And that's why men, right? Hey, this is even going to help some of those SJWs understand the reason why men and women are different, right? Men are usually the ones that fight these conflicts and these wars, which is why we've been built up and have these natural strengths, and our physical composition is much different from women, because physical battles and confrontation is what the human experience has always been about. Nowadays, though, folks, and for you people that don't understand this, it's like, really, do you really need Alex Jones to be so much ahead of you, so superior, not many? Are you really willing to accept that you're so inferior to everything that you don't even understand things that someone like Alex Jones understood for 20 or 30 years? Like, that's the part. It's like, it's not that I'm like one of those big, giant fucking Alex Jones fans like some people are, but I just got to admit that it's like, yeah, he had it figured out. InfoWars. The wars that we're dealing with, the battles, the conflicts that we're dealing with today, it's all online. World War III is already here, fuckers. In case you don't realize this, it's just that it's not a bunch of physical people. It's not a bunch of green men out there with their fucking rifles, right? It's like, no, that's not how wars take place these days. That's not to suggest that they won't eventually get to that point, because right now it's just rhetorical. It's just propaganda. It's an information war. Now, as long as one side thinks that they're winning, they probably will restrain or contain themselves from going into the physical realm. Because, like, well, if you win the battle without going to the physical realm, why would you want to, right? Why get your hands all dirty and bloody if you don't have to, right? But this is the problem, folks. As we're seeing, the words are going past each other. The missiles are being directed at each other. No words are. It's just constant lobbing of propagandist missiles at each other. And at some point in time, I mean, people are sick and tired of ducking and covering, right? It's like, whoa, I avoided that one. At some point in time, like, it actually goes from the words being lobbed. Once again, I used a metaphor to explain the fact that we're lobbing language at each other. Boom. The word bombs, right? Or on our side, the truth bombs, whichever one you want to perceive it as. But their words right now are being lobbed at each other. But once it gets to the point where nobody's listening, and each missiles are just landing on open fields and nobody's even noticing that they're even being lobbed, and you're spending $1 million to build these bombs and they're not doing anything anymore. They're not affecting the other side. So at some point in time, they're going to step up their efforts, because their efforts at the end of the day is, and that's the thing with these central planners, these control freaks, these collectivists, right, is they want to be able to control things to the way that the world or their particular part of the globe unfolds the way they want it to happen. Well, when there's a barrier to that, Well, and they can't win in the information war. Well, what's left? Like I say, if you can't beat them and you're not willing to join them, what the hell do you have left? Or sorry, if you can't convince them and you don't want to join them, what's left? Well, you better beat them, right? That's so. This is the problem, and this is why people like me and Matt are constantly trying to advocate and how important it is for you to get more up to speed and understand what this information war is all about, because we want to keep it in the information realm, right? Because right now there's nobody's being bloody. A lot of egos are being bruised, no doubt about it. Lots of reputations are being tarnished. And a lot of people are definitely butthurt, right? There's probably lots of bruises on a lot of people's butts right now. But other than that, they'll be fine. But unless we want things to go into the physical realm, well, we have to win the information war. If we don't win the information war, well, like I said, the only thing we have left at our disposal is once words can't be used, well, you know what's the tool of last resort? And do you really want to get to that point? Well, depending on which side you are, I guess it's not going to work out really well, right? Well, neither side's going to benefit too much from it, but one side's definitely going to lose a lot more than the other. And at the end of the day, I think we all lose under that situation or scenario. Anyways, get back to what you were going to say there, Matt. I just really wanted to point out that we have to win the information war. And if we don't, then we go to the real world.
The Chinese, it reminds me of the movie Troy, when you got Agamemnon says to Achilles, to the other king, you bring your biggest guy, I'll bring my biggest guy. We'll let the two guys fight it out, and then whoever wins will take over. Yeah. And they agree that instead of all the bloodshed and what could happen, what ifs, let's just see who the bigger man is. And Achilles obviously goes up and jumps and hits him in the neck, and that's the end of it. But the Chinese, they took this approach. They realized that, why would we go to war with America? If we just bring this suitcase of money and hookers and prostitute over to Biden, we can take their king. And then we got everything. We didn't have to shoot a single bullet, and now we just got the most powerful. So that's all that they've realized. People think that you need this big, complex thing to be able to control a bunch of people. In all reality, you just need the heads of each individual areas, right? Because everything comes from the top down. We've learned this through COVID, that you get these health professors, or these ones that are the top of the COVID orders, and they just say, I declared that this is shut down. No restaurant here. So it comes from the top down. The same with the president or the heads of military. So people how are they able to pull off this massive scheme to control the globe? It's well, it could literally be a couple hundred people to run America if you could bribe each one of them. And that's what's going on, folks. And here's another analogy. In the movies, what do you always see? The local police roll up on a crime scene. They go, this looks like corruption, or this looks weird. And then all of a sudden you see the guys with the black suits, or the FBI roll in, and they go, this is over your pay grade, guys. We're taking over. And the police go, oh, yeah, well, it's the FBI. And most people don't realize, and the same within the movies, usually the FBI is the cover-up crews, right? They come in, and because they're the FBI, they tell the local police who might have actually investigated the crime, sorry, you're the little guy, get out of here. And then the FBI rolls in and they investigate. Most times they actually cover up. So that's what's been going on for a long time too. So if you got an FBI department and you get one sec of that, a couple guys at the top and maybe a couple little branches of it corrupt, you just make sure that those guys are the ones that go investigate the cases that it might be yours. Or maybe it's a couple of judges. You just make sure that it's, when you get in trouble, it's that judge you go in front of. Folks, it's not that difficult. People think that it's this super complex thing, when in all reality, it's simple as, hey, if I gave you $10,000, would you put a USB in that computer? Oh, I got student loan debt. I work a shitty government job. You know what? Maybe, yeah. And then next thing, they're a Chinese spy. People don't realize that people are very easily compromised when it comes to money. Everyone has a number. I mean, look at OnlyFans. There's girls out there doing some crazy stuff on the internet today on OnlyFans for some money. So you think people aren't willing to do crazy things for money when it comes to maybe selling out their nation, or maybe working a dead-end job as a security guy or a police officer, or a judge who just has to maybe give a little material up, and all of a sudden you get $1 million. So this is what's going on. It's not that complicated to understand, but they play it in all these James Bond movies to the public to make them think that, oh, it can only happen in the movies, folks. No, it happens every day. It's real life stuff.
Yeah, I just wanted to share this particular link too, folks, because some of you out there probably are familiar, whether you follow Matt's pages or channel or mine, is you're probably familiar with Luke Radowski or Tim what's his last name again?
Tim Pool.
Tim Pool, that's it. How the hell did I forget about that real quick? But anyways, Tim Pool, which is a great guy. He was actually very early on. He was an early adopter and reporter for Vice News way back in the day. And he's actually, to this day, I believe he still continues to call himself a liberal and would identify himself as such. But he's another one of those people who have vacated what he calls the left because he realized that I understand the difference between being a liberal in the classical sense and being someone who identifies as on the left. Because on the left, what they're talking about today means you're an authoritarian collectivist. Whereas if you identify as a liberal, well, you're basically about a 95% libertarian. If you're a classical liberal, you're almost to the point where you're an actual libertarian. You actually understand the importance of the Enlightened era, all the values and principles that came as a result of that, or some of the founding fathers of the U.S., which they themselves would have identified as classical liberal, right? So the Enlightenment era brought about a lot of figureheads in the past that identified as liberals because it was all about creating, well, liberal. Liberal has a natural term, right? It has a meaning behind it, which is usually has something to do or a connotation in regards to freedom. But what we're talking about today and why Tim Pool and many other people who typically, Dave Rubin's another classic example, who usually identify as being on the left or liberal is like, well, these people have left me. It's not like they have left them. It's just the people that usually identify as liberal are no longer liberals, but authoritarian collectivists and identify on the left, which is why these people are saying, people like Tim Pool are saying, well, I'm staying my ground because I haven't changed, but I sure shit I'm not going to identify myself with the same kind of moniker or banner as the people who are now doing so, but yet with a collective authoritarian mindset. So I'm a real big fan of people like that typically, like I say, historically would have come from the left, but are they themselves, Weinstein's another classic example of that, where they realize that shit, it's those lefties that they typically identify with who are the most authoritarian and collectivists and using their power or their influence as a means to beat their opponents or people who disagree with them over their head with it. So that's the thing. The left, that's the one thing about people like Tim Pool, and they're all acknowledging that I thought I was part of your tribe. I was like, hey, listen, I opted in, right? I did all the fucking shit that you guys said me do to become part of your tribe and your team, but all I did is disagree with you one time, and you fucking clobber me over the head over. It's like, you don't seem like you're very friendly bunch. Right? You seem to be like, yeah, you're real nice. You put on a big smile. Like, look at it. But the minute I disagree with you, it's like, oh, now look at the fangs are coming out. The horns are. And you know what? I got to admit, folks, not only does that stuff resonate with me, but holy shit. I could point out so many examples in my life where I thought these people that identified as liberals were just doing the same thing as what Tim Owen or Luke Radowski or many others have acknowledged is they were just playing the power of persuasion in politics or propaganda. They never meant anything they said. It was all about disarming you so that they could take advantage and control you in some way or manipulate in some way. And that's something that's really important. And like I say, not just the information that's pertained within this, although I will say there's lots of great information pertaining in this video entitled Democrats Caught Hosting Chinese Spies Triggering Calls for Resignation. But it's hearing anecdotal or real-world experiences and stories from people like Tim Pool or others who they themselves have seen just how detrimental and authoritarian the left side of the political persuasion has become in recent years and decades.
Yeah, before you click it, I'll just say a 30-second blip. The Democrats on the left, they obviously got infiltrated by the communists. And they used their dirty tactics and their propaganda worked, and the Liberal Democratic Party, they drank the Kool-Aid, and now we're seeing what happens. So there are those who split and realized that it was a communist infiltration to adopt swap their ideas from liberty over to control, authoritarianism, and communist values. So that's all it was, and we're calling it out for what it is.
Yeah, and I just can't help but point out Luke Radowski. All right, now, if you got ski on the end of your name, chances are you're either from Poland or one of those Eastern European countries, which means that his family probably has lots of historical context and knowledge as it pertains to communism or socialism, which is why you're seeing a lot of people, and I've definitely noticed that myself, people who are, deemed as right-wing people these days are people with a lot of these historical names that come from the Eastern Bloc or have been run rickshawed over by the communist regime or the National Socialist regime. So that's the thing. If you got German or people Eastern German, right? that are speaking out, you might want to listen to them because they have much more knowledge than those of us in the West when it comes to communism and socialism, because they lived it. Well, maybe not Luke per se himself, but his parents, his grandparents, they lived this shit, folks. So they know what the hell they're talking about. So don't, automatically override or overrule what people say just because you think that they might come from some of these Eastern Bloc countries, because actually these are the people that genuinely know what the hell actually took place there because they lived that, right? So anyways, go ahead, Matt.
No, go ahead. You can play the video.
Oh, no, but it's 20-something minutes long. You don't want to play the whole video.
No. That's fine. No, just put up I just sent you a photo on Facebook there of Mr. Xi.
Okay.
And this photo is a representation of what America faces if they don't get up off their knees and do something.
That's a good one. That's funny. Okay, you wait. Hold on there, folks. This is good. This is good stuff, though.
So that's fine, guys. You want to just roll over to the communists. I'm pretty sure they got concentration camps ready for you as well under the guise of COVID, maybe.
Here we go.
And here is Xi.
Warning, if you're lefty, you're going to get triggered here. Just
yeah.
Gonna let you know here.
Is Xi and Biden at their latest meeting, I think.
Oh, wait. Sorry. Fuck. Wrong one. Where the hell did it go?
Facebook.
Oh, it's on the Facebook, but it's on. Okay, so it's under. It says Kerry Burr. Okay, one sec. Got to find which stream we're at or which one here. Okay, share screen.
So breaking news: Biden and Xi just got at their latest meeting.
Damn, it's not that one.
Talking about the American election.
Shit. Okay, one more. There's two of them I got set up here. So here we go. We got it. There we go.
All right, there it is. This is what you face. This is what, and it's not going to happen, but this is good representation. If Biden were to get in, it would be total control. It would be, he'd have him on a string, just like as you see there. Biden likes to wear the mask. He's barely there. I mean, the guy's senile, and it's probably just going to be, he steps aside and it would go to Harris, but that's not going to happen. So let's switch. We've been an hour into this, and we've been talking about the CCP and the communist infiltration. I think we're pounding it into people's heads for the first hours. But what's happening on the wins perspective? What are we doing good out there when it comes to the legal victories and making sure that this doesn't happen and Trump gets in? So I also shared with you, Dad,
which one?
A map. It is a map, and you'll see
I remember
states
the map.
selected in red and states selected there in blue.
Okay, got you. I'm going to share that right now.
So here's the good news, folks. The good news is this map is a representation. All the ones in red are the states that have joined on to Texas lawsuit, and they are suing the blue states in question.
Now. Yeah, actually, that's great because there's 16 of them now. When I was first reading about,
it's up to 19. It's up to 19 now.
Oh, they're 19 now because it went from 9 to 16, and apparently now 19. Now, folks, in the U.S., to have a constitutional amendment or have a constitutional convention where you actually got to talk about this stuff properly, right? You need 2/3. So 2/3 of 50 state would obviously require. So what do you need? 7? Wait, no.
Can we zoom the map in a bit?
17. You need 2/3 of 50. What's 2/3 of 50? Probably about 17 or 18 times 2. So what? 34? Yeah, 34, probably. 36. I'm guessing, just doing quick math off the top of my head, sounds like probably 34. But they're already.
I think they need maybe 29.
Now, right? Anyways, what else do you want me to share? Sorry.
No, just can you bring the picture up a little bit bigger?
I don't know if I can.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, that's the way it is on this page here. So.
All right, that's fine. Okay. But people, let's take a second and look at this. Okay, this map is a good representation of the breakdown of America. So everyone in red is places that believe the American election was rigged and stolen from them. As much as people want to deny that, these red states are signed on to this lawsuit. So this is pretty damning information, and this is why people need to realize. What's that?
Well, I'm just looking at Texas. I'm just recognizing the states. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all
I mean, this is what I mean. The country is divided. You can see quite a big portion of that map, and we're only in the early stages. There may be still other states to join into this. this is not going to go down the way that Democrats and the liberals think it's going to. Biden will not be put in office on January 20th. There are multiple different fail-safe mechanisms put in place right now, and some of them the president can talk about, some of them he can't. He's trying the military, or he's trying the legal aspects, and the big problem with that, and what the liberals kept throwing in our face in the mainstream media is, all these Trump lawsuits get thrown out, none of them make it anywhere, and that was starting to piss a lot of people off. So what did these God bless Texas, might be literally Texas who saves the republic, which is beautiful in itself. But what do is when a state sues another state, it bypasses all the courts and automatically goes to the Supreme Court. That's how it works. So this was like Texas saying, okay, we let you for the last month try to do this the judicious way, try to put it through the courts, through the different tiers, and you kept throwing it away. You didn't even want to see any evidence. So Texas comes along, gives them the big middle finger with their cowboy boots on and says, bam, there you go. Who wants to sign on to the lawsuit? Now we're seeing each and every day more and more states signing on to this lawsuit. And then when it comes to the Supreme Court making the decision, as much as the Supreme Court wants to say they're unbiased when they're not, clearly they're political hacks by the way that they vote.
But how can anyone in the Supreme Court say they're not biased?
Oh, exactly.
When we know, you don't know, but this is the hilarious part. Let me just say this real quick, so for the people that are paying attention, we've heard all the media point out the fact that Trump appointed 3 conservative judges. So we all know that it's politically biased. Now, whether they're misinforming you, that's up to you to figure all that stuff out. But the fact that the establishment media all acknowledge that the Supreme Court has been politicized, at the very least, even no matter which side of the aisle that you want to fall on, at least you have to acknowledge that it's been politicized, because everyone from both sides of the political equation and all those people who are in power or position to appoint them, whether it's Trump and his team or the Democrats, they're all admit that they're looking to stack the court into one side of their favor. So the courts are politicized, which means justice, the rule of law, it's a fabrication these days, folks. To pretend otherwise is to just, like I say, close your eyes, plug your ears, and pretend that everything is just normal when obviously it's not. So let me just.
Okay, so let's take that point, like you said. So the courts are politicized. We all know it, like you just said. So as this map we're looking at gets more and more red, puts a lot of pressure on the 5. I don't count Roberts. Let's throw him off the side. But for sure, the 5 that are supposedly calling themselves Republicans. So if they want to have any face, if they want to, to be able to walk down the street and look American people in the eye ever again, and they have these states lighting up red, each one of those states that turns red to me feels like more pressure on those 5 Supreme Court justices to do the right thing on the lawsuit. So I look at this as a victory. And this is the best case scenario. The Supreme Court wins or the electors decide to choose the election. Here's worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is everything fails. The courts fail us. All the agencies fail us. And then the January 20th rolls around and they physically try to take Trump out of the White House. Trump then has the military as his last and final card. And it's a very good and heavy card to play. And if all these military generals are rallying behind him, if Michael Flynn is throwing out in the propaganda winds that, martial law, and even the mainstream news picked it up and they started floating it, could actually Trump to do martial law. The fact that they're floating that is just them telling you that this is our final key. Because what has Trump always said in negotiating? Nothing's off the table. A good negotiator, even if he believes he won't do, let's set example, would never tell his opponent that that's off the table because he wants to be at an advantage negotiating. Trump wrote Art of the Deal, right? He's all about negotiating. So he knows he's going to tell them, and I think he actually would, hey, we're going to do this through the courts. And if the courts fail us, this is why I got all these military generals rallying behind me. And this is why a majority of the military supported and voted for Trump, and why I've been licking the boots of all the police as well. And why if you try to do a physical removal of me in the office, good luck. Secret Service is on my side. Military is on my side. So I keep saying it, folks. Trump's going to win. Don't worry. That doesn't mean don't be vigilant. Your enemy is still coming at you like a vicious dog on rabies. They are taking any and all tactics to try to take this away from you. So when I say we got this in the bag, that does not mean you sit back on the couch and eat Cheetos. At any point in time, this could sway the other way. I feel confident right now because everything is going the way I said and the way I planned. As cases started dropping off, like me and my father before, we talk in private, and we'd be like, of course it went in front of like an Obama judge, he threw it out, but the public was like, oh my God, Trump lost the lawsuit. Oh my God, oh, the Patriots are losing. And they would jump on this, but that's what the propaganda tool of the left is going to do. The Democrats, they're going to put out anything they can to make it seem like there's no hope, Trump supporters. There's no hope, Patriots. You lost. This is also why they called it for Biden earlier on in the election, a couple of days after, and started calling him president-elect. What was his alternative? To not call it and to then start believing that there could have also been some fraud? He had to get in on it early to solidify it was a legitimate election. Everything makes sense. Everything's going the way it should be, but still be vigilant and do your jobs.
Yeah, that's one thing. I can't speak for anyone other than myself, but all the people that hope that I'll just eventually just relent, shut up, sit down, allow myself to be silenced and go away. It's like, I don't know. I like I said, I can't speak for anyone else, but you don't know me. You don't know my personality. You don't know what the fuck I am as a person, because I'm so competitive and so driven, and especially when I know I'm right or when I know I can win. Good, like I say, there's basically, I don't know what the hell he would ever take. I can't even if I sit down and think about it profusely for a long, expanded, protracted period of time. It's like, I don't know what the hell you people could ever do to stop me from doing what I'm doing when I know I'm in the right. Well, I mean, if you could somehow convince me I'm in the wrong, maybe, right? But so far, after 10 fucking years of a massive propaganda campaign, bullying, trying to silence me, insulting me, deriding me, misrepresenting my views, all the things that I've been through. If you haven't been able to do it after 10 years, it's like, I just don't understand why anyone that's continuing to try is like, if you never heard that old expression, is that, trying the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, is literally the definition of insanity. It's going to leave you with a big old headache because you're just going to be banging your head against the wall day in and day out, trying to turn me into a status. Because like I say, I just can't. Once a person knows that 2 + 2 is 4, it's like trying to tell someone, to me, trying to convince me to stop being who I am is like saying, I want you to believe that 2 + 2 is 5. That is literally, that's what I love about these books by like people like George Orwell or your what's the other one, Aldous Huxley or whatever with Brave New World or 1984. You got to understand that there are people in the human race that just, you're not going to do anything. You're not going to undermine my confidence in my knowledge. Why? Because I put in the work and the effort to make sure I'm knowledgeable, right? It's like, you can't undermine a mathematician by saying 2 + 2 is 5. Why? Because they've made sure that they're really well articulated and understanding math, right? And I've make sure that I'm really well articulated and understand philosophical concepts, principles, ethics, morals, metaphysics, epistemology, history, geography. I've made sure I've done the work. Just like if I'm going to race someone down the track, I made sure I've done my work, right? So that's the part that I don't understand. And the people that are constantly relying on their ability to try to trip me up is literally relying on the fact that they can trip me up and trick me, stick something out there as an impedance or a barrier, something to prevent me from being able to move. It's like, okay, but do you not understand that once people realize that you're the one that's always trying to trip me up, I'm saying you do whatever you want. I'm saying here, I'll roll out the red carpet for you. You say, but your red carpet means you got to meet me at the end of it and we got to talk this. It's like, I'm ready to sit down and talk at any time. Are people in CNN? Are people at CBC? Are people at even Fox? Are any of these hacks that are informing the status quo or the sheeple who fall in line with the status quo? Are any of these people allowing anyone to challenge their narrative? Not at all, right? Whereas people like myself, people like Matt, people who are part of the Liberty movement are like, I'm inviting you, I'm enticing you. Matter of fact, I'm fucking trying to bait you into coming and talking with me sometimes so I can put on public display just how ill-informed, ignorant, and propagandist your bullshit really is. That's why there's no information that's being conveyed back and forth by sides, which is why, the division is becoming to the point where we might turn into civil conflict, is because our opponents realize that they have nothing to offer other than bullshit propaganda and platitudes that might make you feel something, right? But nothing that's grounded or based on objective reality or common sense, logic, or reason argument. So that's the thing. I'll sit here as long as I want or as long as I need to be and wait for my opponents to either shoot themselves in their own proverbial foot or finally come around to the point where they feel bold enough to challenge me. And then once again, they're going to lose in that equation. No matter what my opponent loses, it's just when they want to lose. Do they want to protract it, make it last longer? That's why the media hacks and the political establishment won't pay attention to my channel, will ignore us, or people like myself, is because they know the minute we actually actively involve or engage in genuine dialogue is the minute they've lost the conversation and the information war.
Yeah, and like to add to that, so, you know, like you said, over the last 10, 20, 30 years, I think what's been going on is we've been underneath the demoralization aspect of the propaganda. That's what the communists do. They first got to demoralize the nation. They got to propaganda. They got to break you down, because if you're like in shape and ready to fight and you're just, you know, standing on 10, they're not ready to walk in and fight you in that. First, they got to break you down. They got to beat you down. They got to make you feel like you're nothing of yourself. And then they can come in and start doing things to you. So for the last, period of time through the media, it's been demoralized. And here's where I think, like, Trump, I don't know if he did it on purpose, or like Steve Bannon and the strategists in 2016, I think they really knew what they were doing. That you have the communists using a demoralization propaganda tool on America in the last couple decades. And what's Trump's message? America first, America great again, which is literally the total opposite of a demoralization message that America, you're crap, you're scum, you're racist, you're nothing, you're not that great, you're just the bullies of the world. So he comes along and he literally punches through the propaganda wall and says, make America great, which is such a small term, but at the time, people didn't realize its significance, that it was an attack on the demoralization propaganda tool the communists have put America through.
It perfectly aligns with the whole concept of the American founding, the Constitution, and American exceptionalism. That's the point why Trump and his MAGA message resonates with so many people. Is because America become America for a reason. It was because of the ideas, the exceptional nature of the ideas that were contained within the Constitution, which is to acknowledge things that no historical. I will lend a little bit. I don't like to throw the English people under the bus, because I do recognize there's a whole lot of historical context where the British and the English people did contribute to the promotion and adherence to the foundational aspects of individual liberty, even to some of the French people. Actually, let's throw a hand out right now to some of the European leaders of thought and intellect in the past, like Austrian economists and stuff. So I get it. But it was the American founders. It was the founding of the American state, the American experiment, that set them on a course where they were going to hold themselves to be exceptional in comparison and contrast to everyone else in the world. Why? By not going collectivist, by not sacrificing individuals for the state or for the collective or for the greater good, but for promoting and adhering to the very fundamental principles which was so important and espoused in the New Testament in terms of Christianity, and the importance of the individual and the sovereignty of the individual and free will. That is what gave the American experience and the American people such exceptional circumstances and the ability to think of themselves as exceptional people, because for a long, long time, most of them, not all, were, because of the ideas. Not because they themselves as people were somehow exceptional in nature, but because they recognized the exceptional aspects of the ideas that the founding fathers established and enshrined within the Constitution. And what Trump represents today is that foundational goal, which is to represent that exceptional idea, which is so far removed from everything in terms of historical context, in terms of, might makes right, force is a means to an end, violence is an answer, right? The American exceptionalism is something that we should all not just respect, but strive to attain, which is why I'm very glad that Trump used the term MAGA, because that is one thing that definitely gave a lot of the American people. Because if you don't believe that there's an idea that's contained within your society that makes you exceptional in any way, well, then that definitely affects your psychology and how you think or perceive and how you defend those ideas.
And it's kind of magical to me how the world played out, because I like to explain it in visuals that people can understand. America was basically on their back. They were demoralized for the last 30 years. I think we were to the point where we were almost demoralized where they could actually bring in the full blown start communism the way that they were hitting at with Bernie. And, you know, they're probing to have Hillary Clinton in. Now, whether it was Hillary Clinton who actually brought forth the full agenda of all the communist stuff and making America even worse, or it was a couple more politicians out from her. But the point is, America was on its back. It was like, you know, tyranny was on top of us, about ready to stab the knife in our chest. And all of a sudden, Trump comes out of nowhere and grabs the hand, just as they're about to plunge it in after demoralizing us for 30 years. And the magical thing about it is, it had to be Trump. Do you know how much millions of dollars it costs to run to be the president? Do you know how much you got to have already a kind of a fame and an aspect to even have people know your name, to be able to even understand who you are, to run and put your name down? So like Trump comes out of nowhere, which is like, he's a billionaire, he's a TV guy, he has all these checks going for them. And instead of taking the money like so many other billionaires like Bloomberg and all these other idiots did before, and just take their money in corruption, take their bribes, and sail off into the sunset while America is pillaged, the guy comes and, like I said, literally grabs the hand and stops them from plunging it deep into a Lady Liberty's chest. And now we're starting to see, folks, we're finally starting to see the patriots helping Trump pull that hand back away from the chest. But we're not even in a fight yet, folks. We're just finally now, America's finally now giving some pushback on the knife's edge, saying, no, we're not communists. We don't like this. Stop with the lockdowns. And people need to realize that, yeah, we're not even in the fight yet. We haven't even gotten both of us to our feet. We haven't even started swinging fists yet. We are literally just starting to minorly resist. And why I talk with such confidence, like my father said, you're not convincing him to go along with this. And he believes it in his soul. He believes it in his blood. And you're not going to change that. And the same way he is, I'm not naive to think that there isn't another million of us that are like us, like me and my father, that the Stefan Molyneux, the Adam Scully's, the Alex Joneses, all the other beautiful patriots in the military, and the General Michael Flynn's and the Steve Bannon's. You're not putting all these individuals in concentration camps, and you're not letting them live under communism. So this is what I love about what's going on right now, is we're going to have our freedom, whether it's done through the Democrats' run plan or through our run plan. No matter what, though, liberty's coming out the other end, because you're not convincing these people now to go back in the box. And I always say that every Dave Rubins, every Tim Pools, every one of those fence sitters that we keep pulling over to the Trump sides, to the liberty movement, to the patriots, you don't see many people jumping over and going to support Antifa and the Democrats. We don't see the same conversion. As every one or two comes to our side, you don't see anyone leaving our side. Everyone we pull to our side's another one on the army. We're winning this information war. And if we weren't, they wouldn't be censoring you. They wouldn't be taking the videos down.
Exactly.
So, like, if they're censoring us, folks, that means we're working. You know, we've been posting Ron Paul memes since 2012, and they started censoring us in the last couple of years. Why? Because they're like, shit, those bastards with those goddamn weed memes saying, like, oh, here's a guy who smokes weed, he's locked up, but here's a guy, like, all the funny little memes. They're like, stop it. And they had to shut it down. It was too much they could handle. So what's that tell us? Keep it going. Keep putting on the pressure. It's working, folks. We're winning.
It really is. That's true. But check this out. I just want to mention this right now because it just came through my Facebook feed just literally minutes ago, folks. So check this out because it's completely in line with what we're talking about. So Senator Cotton calls for special counsel investigation of Hunter Biden. This is once again, thanks to our fine folks. And I got to tell you, folks, True North News, definitely check them out, subscribe to them, and definitely share them around on your social media pages and help get their information out there as best you can. Same with Post Millennial. These fine folks and some of these alternative media outlets that have propped up in Canada to challenge the status quo in the establishment. And Rebel News is another, Rebel Media, I will say, is another great source of information to challenge the status quo in the establishment. But yeah, definitely help support these folks if you and financially too, if you get the options to do so. So once again, this is an investigation of Hunter Biden. Cotton's comments come only a day after it was revealed that Hunter Biden's taxes have been under investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Delaware since 2018. So once again, it's a little bit shocking and disturbing the fact that, the establishment media didn't cover this stuff. And now even if they start to subsequently cover it, it's a little bit late, a little behind the times there. But at the very least, it's all coming to light. Information is being revealed.
But the hilarious thing, Dad, is what you're seeing played out right now. Isn't this the pressure effect that I talked about in my strategy? I said Trump needed to get out off the couch, off the golf course, He needs to start hosting rallies like so many people are saying. He needed to get on the Oval Office and do speeches. Check, he's done that. He needs to start pardoning the patriots. Now, he hasn't done Assange yet. He hasn't done Julian Assange. Maybe that's going to, or Edward, maybe that's maybe a Christmas present. But, you know, he's definitely listened to what the Patriot has been saying. And now with the special counsel stuff, we're starting to see it's a pressuring effect. So as it gets closer and closer to the January 20th date, and the deep staters don't back down on him, he's put more and more, okay, special counsel prosecutor to Biden. Okay, then we'll start showing some of the video in the Oval Office maybe. Like, it's playing out exactly how we see, and this is what Trump does. I'm more of like, I like to walk up and punch the bully in the face. Trump likes to mess with them. So, like, I don't know which strategy is best, but Trump likes to, like, play mind games a little bit. He likes to go, oh yeah, and he likes to feed them a little raw meat, and then when they go eat it, they fall right in the trap. So, you know, I don't know. He has like this Machiavellian approach to some things. It's kind of weird, but it's different strategies. I can't say whether or not it's going to work or not, but so far he's been very effective. And all this stuff is just signaling. It's sending out propaganda to the patriots and to the lefties that don't be surprised if Biden's not in office on January 20th.
Exactly. So that's, like I say, another really important piece of this particular information.
Yeah, because Rudy Giuliani has seen that laptop, and he said what's on it. He said there's child exploitation on there. There's child abuse that I had physically had to hand it over because it was my job as a lawyer. I had a legal obligation to hand that material over because I had people that were potentially current victims that I had to try to get protected. And then there was all the bribery stuff with all the slush money payoffs. So when you get a special prosecutor who literally looks at child exploitation, how the hell is he going to turn the eye on that? I mean, that's what I mean. Trump just needs to get someone to look at this stuff, and it's going to be very hard for them to just sweep it under the rug because it basically tells the entire American population that your courts don't matter, the office don't matter, your vote don't matter. And when the American population feels demoralized and they feel like their votes don't matter and nothing they do matters, well, that starts smelling like revolution times. And that's just not me saying it. That's just a historical aspect that when people feel disenfranchised and they feel that if I go out, I'll get rid up for jaywalking, but yet politicians are allowed to exploit children and do all these other horrible acts and sell our country out, and they walk scot-free. People hold a lot of animosity and aggression towards people like that. So
for sure,
you got to be careful.
Yeah, for sure. I just happened to notice. You see that right beside you there? That's pretty awesome, man. That just showed up on my feed on my Facebook page from Dan Dix, back from December 6th, 2006, covering Bilderberg in 2006.
Exactly. They've been talking about Dan's most commented
photo. That's awesome. Dan's most commented photo on Facebook of 2007, folks. That's 13 years ago. 13 years ago. That these fine folks who, you know, have been called every name under the book, right? Have had their channels taken away from them. You know, Alex and Dan, actually, that's one thing that they share in commonality and similarity is this establishment have attacked them tremendously. And for doing, even if you suggest, that's the thing to me, is like, even if you believe that Alex Jones and Dan Dix are just a bunch of conspiracy theorists, I'm fine with that. I'm totally cool with, even if the media wants to label them that way. The point is, though, why are they so scared of these two guys? If they're just a bunch of nut bar conspiracy theorists, why in the fuck would you go to so much? Why would a like hundreds of billion, almost $1 trillion company, right? Well, if you take the entirety of their portfolio in terms of Alphabet, in excess of probably $1 trillion in terms of their business model and their purchasing power and their ability to fucking get things done, right? So $1 trillion companies are seemingly so scared to death of these two gentlemen that, I don't know, they just look like two dudes as far as I'm concerned, right? But apparently they're so magically powerful that YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all these big giant behemoth, these $1 trillion companies or hundreds of $1 billion unicorns, right, are scared. And of course the established media, well, the established media won't even touch them. As in terms of the established media, Dan Dix and fucking Alex Jones, it's like the third rail. You don't touch the third rail unless you want to get fried, motherfucker, right? So, but it's just two dudes that don't toe a party line and are willing to say stuff, even if you want to call it conspiratorial. Well, once again, I've seen some dude with a fucking rubber boot on his head that ran for president. I've seen dudes downtown Toronto that are like dressed with bunny ears and shit that talk out in the streets, or I've seen the dude down in fucking New York City that wears underwear all day long and says some crazy stuff. Are they all trying to silence all these people? No, and I'm pretty sure you could call them conspiracy theorists or nuts or a little bit strange at the very least. But they're not trying to silence them, are they? Nope. But for some reason, they're trying to silence Dan and Alex. I wonder why that could possibly be. Because if they're just lying, well, it would be easy just to say they're a bunch of lying, deceiving nut bars and move on. But if you spend the last, 2007, if you spent a decade and a half, spending a lot of money, time, and resources taking down these two just regular dudes, right? Well, they've obviously got something that scares you really, really bad, right? And what I would suggest is a counter narrative, or what might ultimately be deemed as the truth. You might want to challenge that some point in time, because like I say, what could possibly make behemoths, like I say, what would make a 500-pound Goliath want to smash a 98-pound weakling? Well, that 98-pound weakling must obviously represent quite a challenge or a threat to that behemoth, right? So that just speaks volumes without really having to say too many words. Anyways, I just wanted to bring that up.
It's because the thing about conspiracy theorists is like, you could have fun with your imagination. You could talk about topics like the moon's made of cheese, the earth is flat, and then you could start maybe segue into, the government can control the weather. And then some of these agents are probably sitting around like, haha,
they're turning the fucking frogs gay, goddammit!
Exactly. Or they're turning the frogs gay. But, everything, sometimes the conspiracy theories stumble around real conspiracies, and they unearth actual things and military programs, and that scares the government sometimes. So, think of the terminology. That's what I always hate about today is there's always it's an information war, and it's a war on words and how we use them, because here's Oxford's Language Dictionary. Conspiracy theory is a belief that some covert but influential organization is responsible for a circumstance or event. So when Obama planned to send
I'm a conspiracy theorist.
No, but I guess when Obama plans to send drone strikes, those are all conspiracy theories, right? They're covert by influential, responsible people planning an event. Like, come on, it's a word that we all know. This is a word invented by the CIA to discredit organizations because someone back in the 60s.
Nowadays they got a new word for conspiracy theorists, though.
Yeah,
it's called far right.
Exactly. And, someone back in the 60s, was stumbling around a military base, thought they seen an alien, accidentally caught a friggin' advanced military aircraft on their camera. And then, they had to start discrediting these type of people, and they had to start, spinning propaganda stories. And that's what, Operation COINTELPRO, Mockingbird, all this stuff where the CIA, and they would literally like, there's whole documentaries on Netflix about this, where they would have these FBI agents, they would hire them to literally go to these MUFON alien meeting groups, and they'd say, hey guys, and they tell them these wacko stories and give them fake government documents to make it seem legit in order to maybe get them off of the story that they might have been uncovering real stuff on. So maybe they were down by some military base the public wasn't aware of, and to get them to say, hey, go away from that base, you might actually uncover some actual maybe some new military technology that we don't want the China to see. Let's tell you a story about some wacko from certain galactic nation over here. Go look over here. So those were actual covert operations to pull people off of actual discoveries of maybe military tech and all that. And the military has been running these operations forever. I look at CNN and CBC and all these other state-run mainstream medias, whether they're funded by the government or they're funded by these foreign actors and these people who want to sell out our nation. They're just CIA intelligence-run propaganda things. Anderson Cooper might as well be having the CIA behind him, directing him. Hey, say this, propagandize the people. That's what we see going on, and that's why when you hear these CNN tapes of Zucker at the top, it's not journalism. He's literally saying, "Here's what you need to talk about. Here's what I believe, and here's the narrative we're pushing." It's not go investigate such story, get to the bottom of it, and tell me what you found out. It's Zucker on a private call in the morning, 9 a.m. call on James O'Keefe's videos saying, hey, don't talk about the Hunter Biden stuff. That'll make us look bad. We need to beat Trump. It's in your it's right in everyone's face, and over half the country knows it, and that's why I don't think they're going to take it from us.
That's right. And I expect, like I say, there are definitely a substantial amount of people in the American, the country of America, that I think are willing to fight and stand up for their freedoms and liberties. How well this is going to play, I don't know. Like I say, it's an information war, folks. It's tough, and we're trying our best to try to put forth and present our side of the equation. And I don't even like using the old term our side, because the only side I am on at the end of the day is it's not left versus right. It's not anything other than freedom and liberty. Does it resonate with me that it actually promotes and adheres to, respecting people's sovereignty and their liberty? And if it doesn't, then I challenge it. And that's what I do. That's the point of libertarianism, is to respect and adhere to the fundamental principles of what it is to be a free human being. Do not be a subject, serf, or slave to a master or a ruling class of any nature, of any sort. That's really what it comes down to. And I think at the end of the day, we will ultimately, hopefully, win this information war, but it's not something that you can just speculate and hope that you can just, dream it to fruition. The only way we win, the only way it does come to fruition, is if more and more people accept and adopt the reality, the facts, and the information that we present, and acknowledge that that is the truth. We're not misrepresenting facts. We're the ones that are telling you the truth. And what we need at the end of the day is for you folks to put your partisan politics aside and be principled like we are, and say, at some point in time, I'm going to have arguments. I'm going to have discussions. I'm going to have debates with people as it pertains to a multitude of social or economic issues. But at the end of the day, when we walk away from that conversation or that dialogue or that debate, the only thing that matters most to me is, can I respect your opinion, your sovereignty, and your ability to live freely? If we can do that, then once again, the sky's the limit, and the West can once again show that it is the best as it pertains to human flourishment and freedom. But if we don't end up in that situation or under that scenario, well, once again, we go back to the ages, the dark ages of might makes right, and whoever has the biggest gun wins, right? And if that ends up becoming the case, that I will say, these lefties that are dominating in the information war, they're winning that war. But if we get to the physical confrontation, it's their opponents that are going to win the war. And their opponents aren't necessarily us. I would like to say it's us who will win. But no, it'll be the authoritarians, but much stronger, much more physically dominant, much more rigid even in their own constructive narratives. And then the left, that's when they'll see, just like the communists, right? When the Nazi regime came for the communists, right? The communists are like, hey, we're kind of socialists too, but you're not nationalists, are you? Right? So it's like, even you folks on the left that think that you're part and parcel of this new ruling class or this new collective or part of the new world order, they'll come for you too. And some of you right-wingers who are collectivists but just disagree with them fundamentally on some very small aspects, well, once again, whether they come for you first or later, save you for later as a snack, you're all still going to be targeted. It's just a matter of the time frame in terms of how long you're going to last under this current paradigm or this current situation. So to me, what I would suggest, whether you're on the left or the right or anywhere in between, is stop playing politics, stop playing that left-right game, and acknowledge that there is no left-right. At the end of the day, it's authoritarians against libertarians. It's about people who promote and adhere to fundamental aspects of freedom and liberty, and those who want to destroy and deny them. You got to pick a side. I'm not the one trying to suggest or say that. I am in this particular video, but not because I created or constructed this whole thing where you're going to eventually going to have to pick a side. But that is it eventually where it's going to come down to. There's going to be a line drawn in the sand at some point in time, and you're going to have to pick one or the other. Are you going to become an authoritarian collectivist and side with those who you deem might at least be able to carry you in their favor and protect you, or you have the resolve, the resiliency, and the rigidity to say, no, I'm a sovereign human being. I don't give a fuck what any man, woman, or anyone else says against me. My freedoms are what matters most to me, and I'm willing to stand in defense of them no matter what. That's really what it's going to come down to at the end of the day. And I ask you, which side are you going to fall on? Because when that time comes, you're not going to be given a big long time frame, right? There's not going to be like the Alex Trebek in Jeopardy where you get a big countdown. It's going to be, you're going to be given the choice then, there, and now. Which side are you going to fall on? Are you going to fall on the side of liberty, or are you going to conform and obey, thinking that you're going to be carried in the favor of the collectivists? Because no matter which side you fall on, the other side is going to recognize, acknowledge that you chose a side, and you're going to be dealt with appropriately. So you have to think about these fundamentally. And the decision is, while I recognize it's difficult, it's really important that you've made sure that you've done your research, you've done your investigation, you've done the work, you've done your homework to make sure that you're going to fall on the right side. And I don't mean right in terms of right or left, but I mean the correct side. And not just what's good for you, but what's good for you tomorrow, next month, next year, your children, your grandchildren, because that's the thing. It's not a one-off thing where we're just going to worry about winning a battle. It's about winning a war, and it's the war of ideas. And the idea is, once again, I'll remind you one more time, folks, is authoritarianism, might makes right, or a live, let live mentality where liberty reigns supreme. Pick one, because there is no real middle ground or gray area currently, or at that point in time, there won't be at least.
And it's so easy to figure this out, folks. It's literally a couple clicks away. We're living in information war. Ignorance is your own choice, and we will play evidence. I'll play the stuff right now. I sent you one right now through Facebook. I'm going to play two clips, each of them about 2 minutes long. Then this is the stuff that you can find on YouTube by mainstream sources.
One for now.
Yeah, I'm going to send the second one to you once you share that first one.
Okay.
Here's the second one.
Well, okay, let me get this started sharing here. One sec. Just one sec.
And like, folks, this is the stuff that we can show you here on my live stream that's on YouTube that's by mainstream sources. All the stuff that I can't show you because it's, maybe explicit material that Hunter Biden's implicated in, you can find that as well. But here, just these two clips I'm going to play for you should be reason alone why he gets investigated and he's being talked to by some FBI officials. So let's listen to this one by Hunter Biden.
All right. And then I just got to run real quick here. One sec here.
Just don't close your screen because it shuts the audio.
I know for my father to tell me that the New York Times is calling, but my old partner, Eric, who literally has done me harm for I don't know how long, is the one taking the calls because my father will not stop sending the calls to Eric. I have another New York Times reporter calling about my representation of the literally, Dr. Patrick Ho, the spy chief of China, who started the company that my partner, who's worth $323 billion, founded, and is now missing. The richest man in the world is missing, who was my partner. He was missing since I last saw him in his $58 million apartment and signed a $4 billion deal to build the largest LNG port in the world. And I am receiving calls from the Southern District of New York, from the U.S. Attorney himself. My best friend in business, Devin, has named me as a witness without telling me in a criminal case, and my father without telling me.
So Hunter Biden needs to win, folks, and Joe Biden needs to win because their life is on the line. If they don't, they go to jail. That's why Joe Biden needs to win, because he can get in there and pardon himself. He knows they've been under investigation. He just admitted, Hunter Biden, he's been under investigation. And the crazy thing is they waited till after the election to tell you about it. They're all in on it. It's all been covered up. The FBI, everyone has seen this laptop. Rudy Giuliani's seen it. He leaked it. A lot of the photos got leaked out. The Chinese actor back in September said it's all going to come out. Watch these hard drives. And this is only one hard drive. We know there's so many more hard drives that implicate these individuals. There's the Hillary Clinton emails, 33,000. You got the Anthony Weiner laptop that had the insurance file as well. And he got in trouble for texting and sending news to underage girls. But you think that's just the tip of the spear? No, he had a bunch more stuff. Huba Abedin worked for Hillary. So there was a bunch more implicated on that hard drive. Then, yes, you have the Hunter Biden hard drive. And you think the guy only has one hard drive? Geez, have you seen how many videos of him smoking crack and wanking his thing and doing nasty things with hookers he had on these hard drives? This guy probably has stacks of hard drives, this stuff. He seems like he's an addict. So That's just one hard drive they looked at. I mean, so that in itself, he said, I am working and talking to the spy chief of China. Why the hell is Joe Biden's son talking to the spy chief of China? And why isn't our government officials asked him, yo, why are you talking to the spy chief of China? Why is he sending you guys money? Are you guys compromised here? China doesn't just send people money unless you're getting something in return. China's a communist nation. They're not nice. They're not giving out rainbows and unicorns over there. They give things out unless there's influence behind it. So what's going on here, guys? And then the second clip, which we can show now, which of the father who knew about all this stuff and who is here in a Council on Foreign Relations meeting. He's on tape bragging, guys. This is how confident they were that they were going to win, and how confident that they thought they would never get caught. He's on in the CFR meeting bragging about how the prosecutor was going to go look into some of this Burisma stuff in Ukraine because China was, they got control over their prosecutors. So China, it's whatever the CCP says rules. But in Ukraine, they had a change in regime change and leadership, and you got a few prosecutors over there who actually wanted to look into some of this stuff. And what's Joe Biden do? Well, he makes sure that guy gets fired. And we're going to watch it from his own mouth here, something that this own video should have him implicated.
Okay, where are we at here? Okay.
Victor Shokin, Prosecutor General Victor Shokin, in his investigation of corruption involving Burisma Holdings, natural gas, identified Hunter Biden. Not wanting his corruption to be exposed, Joe Biden swung into action using U.S. loan grants.
Hold on here, let me bring it back.
Using U.S. loan grants as hostage while demanding Shokin be fired. So he's like, hey, you guys are hurting right now. You're in a little conflict in Ukraine. You guys could really use this foreign aid money to help your country. Literally holding potentially, poor people's money on the hold, people that could desperately use this aid. And I'm not even that much in support of foreign aid, but that's a side story. But he's using the aid as leverage, saying, listen, fire the prosecutor who's looking into the company that my son's on the board because you're going to expose the corruption and the money slush fund that we're running over there. Fire him or you get no money. That in itself should get Joe Biden arrested and put in jail. And we'll hear it from his own mouth.
Yeah. I remember going over convincing our team or others to convincing that we should be providing for loan guarantees. I went over.
Click your mic.
12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce
it's just quiet.
$1 loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to the press conference. I said, no, I'm not going to, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours. I said, leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
Would follow their orders and would not investigate them. I mean, come on, it's right on. They're laughing about it. It's all a big joke. Just the same way the Chinese people today, earlier in the Tucker piece, they all laugh about it. Those who are in the know, folks, know about this stuff, and they laugh. They think they look at the public. People need to realize they look at you like you're useless feeders. That yes, you can be taxed at over 40, 60% in some cases when you add up all the different taxes. That you can be put a muzzle over your face. You can be told to sit in your house. You can be told to take a vaccine that's been rushed through the process. And most people will drink the Kool-Aid and will do it. So the elites, the ruling class, sit on their their luxury castles. They sip their teas. And they look at you like you're dog crap on the bottom of your shoe and that you need to be culled. Because every once in a while, the population gets a little too big and the beach gets a little too full. And these elites, well, they like their space. They don't want to share the beach with you. They don't want to look at your crappy family having fun. They want to see their prodigy having fun. And you know what? As life expectancy technologies get better and people start living longer, that means there's only going to be more crowding. And these elitists, well, you know what? They want their technology, or they want their families to get the technologies, and maybe not you, because that's how they're designed. They're sociopaths. They're psychopaths. Mommy didn't love them. Mommy didn't raise them right. These people are idiots. and they're evil people, and they walk around, they're the predator class, and we walk around as the sheep who are just trying to live out our lives, be moral, good human beings, not realizing that, oh, there's a totally different human out there, the type who's the Jeffrey Dahmer, who will cut your daughter up and do terrible things. And we think that, oh, that's just in the movies. No, there's people in positions of power that think like that. And these are the people, look at what they do in China, right? You got to be a certain type of human being to grab Uyghurs, put bags over their head, take them to concentration camps, and literally do a genocide of their people because they won't adhere to your communist values. This is the type of leadership that has control over Joe Biden, and this is the type of world that do you want to live under? Look at the map behind me. Do you want liberty to win, or do you want communism to win? Because that's where we're at now.
Yeah. Well, Matt, I'm just saying we're bumping up on 1 hour and 54. And actually, I think right now, if we do a quick synopsis, tie this up and finish it under 2 hours. And on the outro, I'm going to play that video one more time, that great music video, because I think it's a really excellent one. But I think 2 hours is probably a good time to start summarizing. So like I said, you're much more privy and knowledgeable on this particular topic and subject matter than I am. So if you want to just, like I say, do a final summary in terms of what you want to say, and then as well as we're going out, like I said, I'll leave the last couple minutes of this video and I'll play that great song that we started by introducing this video. We'll play that as the outro to end this podcast, and then we'll just get back to doing some more research, investigating, and figuring out what we're going to bring to you in the next podcast. Because there's lots more information that's still got to be brought to light, but we're going to start to tie this one up here now. So go ahead there, Matt, and finish with your final thoughts.
So my final thoughts were, I don't know if it's just me that's noticed it, but I find us in the Liberty movement, we kind of almost adapted of hive mind, that one of us will say a sentence or something that'll make sense or come up with a new strategy, and then it gets parroted through the community, and then it makes its way up to the president. So I want to be thankful to all the patriots out there doing their job, whispering these other strategies to other individuals, because it's worked. Because yes, the president did come out. He was golfing for a couple months there. He wasn't that active and engaged. And to a lot of us, we felt like we were losing the propaganda war. It was getting closer and closer to the election where they do the swap over presidents. And it was looking like it was going to be Joe Biden. But then the Patriots and, the Stop the Steal guys with Ali and InfoWars and Cernovich and all these great human beings, they took up the initiative. They got off the couch and they went out there and they started these rallies and stuff. And then they themselves were parroting things like myself were saying that, Trump needs to follow these 5 different things he could do, pardon his friends in the whistleblower movement. He pardoned Michael Flynn. I'm still hopeful. I'm still thinking we may see the Edward Snowden and the Julian Assange. For sure, maybe Assange. I'm on the fence whether he'll pardon Snowden yet. But Assange's life is in danger, where Edward Snowden, he's okay. He's in Russia. So we're focusing on Assange, and he might still do that. And then we're saying, come on, President, you have the Oval Office. Give speeches from there. He listened. Now he's giving speeches. He calls up these hearings himself and gives testimony to these senators about the election fraud. So he's taken up the mantle. He's doing the right things. And now he's holding rallies again, which is what we also told him to do. So the Patriots keep pushing the information out there, keep circulating this stuff, sharing my videos, other creators' videos, and parroting this stuff, because it's getting up to the president. Because, think of how much things he has to do in the run of a day, right? He's meeting with military leaders. He's having all these meetings. How much time does Donald Trump truly have to sit down and divulge into day-to-day politics and the news and what's going on in the legal battles? He probably gets briefed on it. But the beautiful thing is he gets briefed on it, and we kind of all parrot and master our way of explaining the messaging to him. So when we do parrot it to him, we can give him in a simplified version that he can understand. Because the man, to all credit, he's an elderly man, right? He's in his 70s, which is not to diminish him or anything, but to stay on top of this stuff takes a lot of time and effort. So he's listening, and I think what we're going to see transpire is you're going to see this get pushed to the Supreme Court, and just like in Al Gore and Bush, they were saying Al Gore was going to win right up until Bush win at the end. So we very, very well see the flip there. I think we will see the flip there. I think Amy Coney Barrett, come on, Trump would have known this, and he guaranteed they met in the White House. They say that I think he said that they didn't talk about it, But that would be unbelievable if you're interviewing someone to be on the Supreme Court, and the questions you ask them is not, "Hey, we know this is going to be contested. The mail-in ballots are going to be a mess. When this comes down, I think how he probably said it. He didn't directly ask her, "Would you vote in my favor?" He probably said, "Will you read the Constitution as written?" And if it is read as written, then the as written has a lot of the stuff you're not allowed to just, they've written these new laws because of COVID to just allow the mail-in ballots. But in a lot of these certain states, that stuff was illegal at the time, but they made an executive decision at the state level to do it. But then never was the Supreme Court of the land say, okay, yes, this is cool. It never made it that level. Finally, through this case with Texas and these other ones joining on, we're finally going to get an answer to, was even doing the election the way it was with all the mail-in ballots, even constitutional the way that it was set up to do an election. And in a lot of realities, when people actually look at the legal aspect, look at the literature, a lot of the things they did wasn't adherent to the Constitution. Why? Because you had certain states who gave different rights. So then you got the ones that, well, so-and-so said that they could come in and cure their ballot. If there was a mistake, they could come in and fix the mistake and resubmit it, where other parts of the country didn't allow that. So that's unequal. It's unfair treatment. So there will be all these technicalities in which once it gets to the Supreme Court of the land, they have to throw it out. And that's why I think Trump, he knew when he hired these individuals on the Supreme Court, all they have to do is just read and give their opinion by how the Constitution is written, and we won. Because then it becomes down to the electors. Then it comes down to them maybe throwing out all the mail-in ballots and just going with the ones that they can actually track. Or maybe they even just rehold another election all over again, in which case this time we're well more aware and we'll definitely be keeping our eye out. Either way, I do believe Trump is going to win. That doesn't mean not keep up the fight. We need to still keep up the fight because that's how Trump gets the information, by us parroting it through the Liberty movement, through the Patriot movement, and be vigilant. And, worst case scenario, if it doesn't go this way, because like I said, everything is adapting and changing. My opinion today could change tomorrow because maybe all of a sudden, let's use a hypothetical situation that may never happen, but let's say the deep state drops a nuke or something on some country or starts a war, then that just messes up all of what I've been calculating and strategizing because I didn't anticipate us going to war all of a sudden. So you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. But as it's looking like so far, it's happening exactly how it was supposed to happen. The election is getting contested and it's getting pushed to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court will make a ruling. If they read the Constitution and rule how it's written, Trump will be reelected. The lefties will cry. They'll riot. That's fine. Trump will send in the National Guard. He'll quell that. And we're going to start moving leaps and bounds towards freedom.
Well, that all sounds really good. I hope it even 1/10 of it actually comes to fruition would be great. But anyways, like I say, folks, I'm definitely not anyone that's going to make any predictions in terms of outcomes. If there's one thing I personally have learned over the last 10 years is never get too high and mighty in terms of your predictions or thinking of how things are going to unfold, because usually anytime I've ever done it, it's always been the exact not every time, obviously. But
well, let me give a Subway section of that to let people in. Right. I'm not saying this is what I'm doing, but also it's good to propagandize people to be hopeful, because it's easier to win if you got a population that's hopeful that there's a chance to win. So when I say these things, I truly do believe that Trump's going to win. But I also have the value in telling people we're going to win, because if people get out there and start thinking that there's no chance in hell Joe Biden's going to win, and people start going home and get on the couch and we don't get out there and don't get active, we need to fight. We need to get active. We need to have optimism. We need hope. We need change, because it's through hope and change and optimism, I think, that we can achieve things, not through hanging our head down low thinking we're defeated.
Yeah, that's true.
This is a propaganda war on many aspects. And, even what we put out, I'm sitting here saying, look everything that we do up. Do your own research. I come from my own opinion, but my opinion is shaped by listening to certain subsections of my news, which is military generals, military intelligence, other actors, other reporters. And then I make the calculated conclusion using my own common sense in my head to give an explanation of what I see happening and what I see might happen.
Yeah,
that's how I come to my conclusion.
Yeah, no, it definitely, like I say, there's definitely potential there. But once again, I just, I always kind of reserve judgment until the outcome comes, because these prediction things, to me, like I say, it's just because I can't ever know how things are going to unfold. I can hope. And the good thing when you're talking about binaries in terms of whether Trump wins or loses is actually I can flip a coin and be right, probably just as correct as if I actually spent a lot of time in. So, right, like I say, Trump definitely he's still putting in the fight. At the very least, we can say he's putting in the fight. There's still a potential at the very least. But regardless, to me, let's just keep this in mind, folks. Whether Trump ends up securing his second term or not, whether it's unfolded as legitimate in terms of the election outcome or not, at the end of the day, it's not going to change anything in terms of your personal law or your personal situation or circumstance. You personally are still going to have to fight for your own social and economic freedoms and liberty, no matter who the hell becomes the president, after January 20th. So that's something to keep in mind. Yeah, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't think the fight is going to be won, even if Trump wins, because that's the other thing. Even if Trump secures another mandate, you've seen how difficult it was during his first mandate, his first term in office. So it's only going to get profoundly worse and more difficult going forward. So no matter which situation or scenario you're expecting in terms of the outcome of the federal election, just know that the fight is far from over, and there's still lots to do as of yet. And the information war, it's still unfolding. And the best thing that we can do is not necessarily worry about who's going to become in a position of power and influence in terms of the Oval or the Oval Office or the White House, but how we can once again become a force to be reckoned with in terms of being, the counterbalance in these information wars. Because really, we're the ones that are leading the charge. Trump is just a figurehead that people can choose to select or elect. The information, the ideas, the principles, the philosophy that underpins, the challenge of the status quo and the establishment. Yeah, that's a little bit variant, and there's a lot of people from different perspectives. But at the very least, I think the common thing that we all share is we've got to disrupt the establishment and the status quo. And if we can at least do that, then, like I say, there's a chance where those of us who are new to politics, to this philosophical endeavor and how the West is going to unfold going forward, maybe we can sit down at the big table and have a conversation, whereas the rest of the fuckers right now who are in power currently won't even let us sit at the big table. So at the very least, if Trump gets in power, or even if he loses, at some point in time, we got to all recognize we got to keep up the fight. And at some point in time, we got to be willing to espouse what we got to say, because once we get our turn at the table or the mic, is we got to know what the hell we stand for. That's why I'm so respectful and adherent to the philosophy of liberty and the libertarian principles, because it's already baked in the cake. Like I say, non-aggression principle, self-ownership, property rights. All these things are something that I think every human being that you ever speak to will say, yeah, I promote and I want to adhere to them. So keep talking about the ideas, discussing the principles, and holding our counterparts, whether they're authoritarian collectivists from the right or left, holding them to account and making sure expanding on, the importance of how important it is to be free as a human being. Because even though the opponents of us think that their collective team is the one that's going to win, once again, their team actually eventually loses in the collective game, because it just means that they're now challenging another collective team or tribe that's going to want to run rickshot over them. So the only way we all win as individuals, right? Like you can win by playing the tribal game, but you don't actually fully win. To win properly as individuals means you acknowledge yourself as an individual and respect and adhere to those rights, those fundamental principles of what individual liberty means. Then we all win. Because like I say, you can be an Antifa, you can be a socialist, you can be a communist, you can be a capitalist, you can be whoever the hell you want to be in a free market environment. All that we really require at the end of the day for social or economic, you just don't use your force or your ideology to beat me over the head with it. That's really all it really comes down to the end of the day, which is why liberty, individual liberty, has to win if it's going to be conducive or beneficial to whether it's the individual, the majority, or even that greater good that some people want to promote.
So the final thing I'll say, I'm hoping what Trump's doing is, Christmas is coming up soon, right, guys? It's in a couple weeks. Christmas will be here. And, I'm hoping Trump, Big Santa Trump, is going to give us all some Christmas gifts. As the president, he can give the American population some Christmas gifts. So, I don't want to be too greedy, but one gift I'd like to open on Christmas from Trump is I would like to see Julian Assange hold his mother and them share a Christmas together. Wouldn't that be a beautiful thing for him to pardon and send Julian home to his mother for Christmas? I think that'd be a great service to the American population. And, you know, you get hopeful and hope that he arrests a bunch of the deep staters, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, all them. Wouldn't it be great to wake up and have all that to open on Christmas? But I think maybe not that drastic, but I think Trump being Trump and being the propagandist that he can be, and the military strategist and the way he thinks, I think also pay close attention around Christmas, guys. You might be in for a little Christmas gift from Trump or a little Christmas surprise. We'll see what that may be.
Right on. All right, I'm going to play that song, and we'll see all you folks in the next stream.
他们的恐惧是我们的武器，我们的胜利。谢谢了，兄弟姐妹们，你们健身了吗？行动，行动，行动！中共，你完了！ Take it down, CCP! 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 Take it down, CCP!
Everything's just beginning for the games you want to play. Bring it on and now we'll fight to the end. Just watch and see. It's all started, everything's begun, and you are over. Cause we're taking down the CCP. Spread the word all through Hong Kong. We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when they're no more. Let's take down the CCP. They have our life for too long. We will end what they do wrong. Spread the word of the Hong Kong. Let's take down the CCP. The world is flying little longer, and you will surrender. And the bullets fly a little longer. We will have freedom to live. We will win. You'll surrender. Let the bullets fly a little longer. Let the bullets fly a little longer. Let the bullets fly a little longer. Let the bullets fly a little longer.
干灭中国共产党这个 CCP， 才能让我们远离恐惧。Take it down, CCP.
They try to scare the nation with fabrication. But we see through the lies and won't fall, people fight you back. Police corruption with crooked assumption. They ran our lives, but no more we will win. We'll take down the CCP. Spread the word all through Hong Kong. We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when they're no more. Let's take down the CCP.